I'm Andrea Rosen. I'm the curator of the Fleming Museum, and I'm here with Associate Professor of Printmaking and Drawing, Mildred Beltré. And we're here talking this video series about recent acquisitions the museum has made in collaboration with art faculty. And Mildred's going to tell us more about how this print was made. This is Katia Santibañez and James Siena's Fourhand Choker. Mildred, how is this print made?
So this print is a woodcut, and it's a reduction woodcut. And reduction woodcuts, color reduction woodcuts are a little different from other color woodcuts in that all the color is printed from one block. So typically, in a typical woodcut, you would have a foundation drawing that you would sort of follow, and you would print and carve and print and carve. This print isn't just a reduction, but it's also a collaboration between two artists. And I believe the way they made it was one artist would carve an image, and then they would have it printed and then hand it off to the other artist, who would then decide how to improvise upon what was already there, and they would hand it back and forth, carving it and printing it until they arrived at the image. I can explain that process a little more, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that fascinates me about it is that because of that process, so you have to do the whole edition one color at a time. Like if you're going to make 20 copies, you have to print all 20 of the green layer, because then you're going to carve that same block for the yellow layer, right?
Exactly. So it's an unforgiving process in that, like you say, if you're going to print so let's say if in looking at the print, and it's interesting when you look at the print, you can sort of see what colors are printed on top of one another. And that is another feature of reduction woodblocks, is that color gets printed on top of previous color. So in looking at this print, it seems like the light yellow was one of the first colors. And so very likely an uncarved wooden block was printed in yellow. And then in order to preserve that yellow, it was cut, and then perhaps the gray was printed. So you're always sort of revealing color rather than putting on color. Or you're putting on color, but in order to maintain it, you have to reveal it through carving the block. Okay. So if the block had been printed light yellow and nothing was carved, then the gray would have just gone over the entire block. So in order to preserve a color, you sort of cut that area before printing the next color. And so here, in looking at it, if I had to guess, I would say the light yellow was the first color, and that sort of dark red was one of the last colors. And the reason that I think the red was the last color as opposed to the blue is because I can see some of that light blue peeking through that red layer. You know, so you can really look at it, and you can pretty much figure out what color is on top of which color, which I find really interesting. Like I'm interested in seeing that process of how that print got planned. But again, the artists are mostly, I think it's interesting because reduction wood blocks usually require a lot of planning by one artist so that you know exactly what you're going to do. But it has that sort of dual nature of sort of like intense planning that has to happen with a reduction wood block, but also the improvisation that happens through each artist sort of responding to the layer that's gone on before.
Yeah, so in picking this print to collect and show here, you know, are there lessons for UVM students in looking at that and being able to dissect it in the way that you talked about? And are there lessons in that back and forth collaboration, improvisation?
I mean, I think both. So I do teach a woodcut class, so I'm always eager to have my students look at different kinds of woodcuts. I think the collaborative nature of the print is important. In the past, I have tried collaborative projects with my students, and I think that, you know, at least in the past, I actually haven't tried it since that first time. I think there was a little bit of resistance to it just in thinking about like the idea of authorship, like, well, who gets the credit? And I think it's nice to see something like this where you can kind of move that conversation and actually see that collaborative work is about conversation, and that it's not about individual credit, but rather what is the result, and like, what does the result look like? You know, so that you can evaluate the result more, and you know, like the thing itself, rather than being like, well, who did what?
Yeah.
You know, that becomes less important than what the thing ultimately looks like.
Yeah. I love that as a note to end on, because that relates to where we've placed it in this exhibition about our process and collaboration, and put it under this quote about that collaboration is hard because of that seating of authority, but it's worth it for what you end up with, right?